Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Um, I am going to pretty much all the routines that we're going to do tonight could be done with a gold ball. If you have a silver ball with you, you can also use the silver ball, particularly for these initial routines. So we're going to do a little bit of lower body work tonight and some upper body. I thought with this being the first live, we'd do a little bit of both so you could kind of see how everything feels. For lower body, I would recommend staying with the gold ball if you have any problems with core stability, core weakness, sciatica that's really active and inflamed right now. You may feel better with the gold ball because we're going to start with hamstrings and glutes and then those external rotators in the glutes. And so sometimes the silver ball might just feel a little too firm for that. You also can always start silver and switch over to gold. I'm going to go ahead and use silver for these initial routines. The silver ball, of course, is going to be a little bit more firm, right? It's going to put a little more pressure on the tissues, but both are going to be effective. So we're going to do lower body, and then after that, we'll move into some chest and then just do the basic back routine. Other things I mentioned, yes, I'm not going to be playing music, so if you want some tunes, I'm going to leave that up to you tonight. I am just rolling on carpeting. So if you are not on carpet and you're on a hard surface, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable on a yoga mat of some sort. So, you know, I'm so used to rolling. My body doesn't hurt on a hard surface. So then even just something to put your elbows on from time to time would be helpful. But if you don't have a mat nearby, you may want to grab something, again, folded up blanket or towel, but a mat's going to be preferred, or rolling on any type of carpet is perfectly fine as well. And then, yeah, as I mentioned before, if you've got long hair, you may want to put it up just when we get to the further routines, or if you have a hood on, you may want to get rid of it. If you have a really baggy top on, when we get to the upper body routines, you'll want to tuck your shirt in so it doesn't get caught on the ball. So let's get started. So we're going to start with hamstrings, basic hamstring routine. So this routine is going to start at our sits bone. So our sits bone is this bony spot that we sit on, right? I've got my skeleton all the way back here, if you can see her. So this bony part of the back of the pelvis. So we sit on these all day. This is your ischial tuberosity. We're going to start on the right side. So you'll want to listen to my voice as opposed to necessarily always looking at me, because I may be flipped around on the camera. But I'm going to start on my right side. I pretty much always start on the right side so that I can keep myself straight. And we're just going to sit. So getting comfortable in this position. For most people, if you've got really flexible hamstrings, you could sit up with both legs straight, no problem, right? For a lot of people, they're going to be more comfortable starting out with their legs bent as they sit on the ball. Also, for some people, if your hamstrings are really tight, you may feel that things are throwing you back, or if it's too taxing on your core to sit up in this position. Sometimes having something to support yourself may be helpful, like a yoga block or a large textbook. If this is really hard for you to sit in this position, we can always adapt this. You know, I probably have to speak to you one-on-one since I can't see you, to doing a wall or being able to do this in a chair. But you're welcome to lean forward. You're welcome to lean however. Again, a good thing to notice at this point, the good thing about body rolling, you don't necessarily need to do this, but it's not a big deal if you fall off the ball, right? So we're just getting some balance, but all these routines are going to start on the bone. So we're just sinking down, right? You can notice that if you put weight into your hands and into your feet, you'll come off the ball, right? It'll take some pressure off that sits bone. Take your hands up, take some weight out of your feet, really focus on the ball, getting more weight in the ball. So we can always modulate how much weight is in the ball if it's too painful. So for this routine, go ahead and stay sitting on this bone. We'll always start sitting on bone for about a minute or two to let the body sink in. We are going to push our hips back. As we push our hips back, the ball is simply going to roll right down the back of the leg. So we have 3 hamstring muscles, but we're really just going to be focusing right down through the center. Okay, so we could do 3 separate lines, but we're just going to do one straight line today. They're all attached by fascia, so we're going to kind of get in there for everything. So from here, all you're going to do, the ball's been under the bone, you're going to push your hips back. And the ball's just going to drop into the tendon at the top of the hamstring. For most people, they really feel a difference as soon as they do this. So you've been sitting on bone, push your hips back. By pushing your hips back, the ball moves down the leg. We drop into the hamstring tendon. We're going to take a couple deep breaths here. So if this is the first time you're doing these routines, you will start to get used to what the difference in how it feels to be on bone versus tendon versus muscle. Okay, so right now we're in tendon. For a lot of people, this is a spot that's sore. And then from here, we're going to push our hips back again. Now, as we move back, there's a couple different things you may notice, right? As we move back, it's kind of piking our body a little bit more. It may be putting us into more of a hamstring stretch, right? So if this is too intense for you, again, you can still move down the leg, but you can bend back and bend the knee if you need to. I have the flexibility in the hamstrings. I'm going to start to go forward. But if you're tight, always feel free to bend the knee, and you can always lean back if you need to, or use those blocks. And then from here, we're going to move back again. So say you are really flexible, you can always lean forward a little more. If you do lean forward, I don't want you to flex the spine, right? I want you to keep the spine nice and long and come forward. You can also flex the foot, right? That brings some tension all the way up through the back. And just focus on sinking. Focus on where the ball is. This notion of sinking is just letting the rest of the muscle tension in your body go and just to get your weight down on the ball. I'll also turn for you to see I am rolling straight back. So this leg is out to the side to support me, but I'm keeping my leg straight in line in front of me. So at this point, I'm about halfway down my leg. We're not going to roll into the knee in this routine. We're going to stop just short of the knee. So we're going to go ahead and roll back again. If you need to, you can sit up a little bit higher and just weigh down into the ball. Ow. And breathe. We want to stop just short of the knee and not go into the knee. If you have any more length, scoot back one more time. My pug just came down to see me. You're going to get to see my little doggy for a second. I may have to run up and run him out. Somebody just opened the door, so he got down here. And then from here, we're just going to go back to where we started and go ahead and come off the ball. Okay. From here, we're going to change to the other side. So what I want you to do is go ahead and place the ball underneath the left sits bone. So we're just going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So this is this is our quarantine doggy. This is Dave. So he came down to say hi. I'm going to run him up really quick while we're doing this. But what you're going to do here just for a moment is you're just going to sit, keep that weight on this left sits bone, again, sitting up. Okay, I will be right back. Give me 1 second.
Mommy.
Go. Where's your dad? I'm coming. Okay. For those of you who have dogs and you haven't been used to them for a while, I forget now that I need to shut the door behind me everywhere I go. He's right at my heels everywhere. So on the left side, we've been on the sits bone. From here, same thing. We're just going to push that hip back, drop into the tendon if you haven't already done so. So there's my little Dave interruption. It was one of those decisions we kind of made on the fly, and I wasn't so sure that it was going to be a good one. You know, I knew it was a quick one, and you know, you're not always sure how that's going to go, but it's been a real welcome addition. So again, sinking. If you have the length in the leg, go ahead and straighten it out. If you need to keep it bent and keep your body weight back, that's fine as well. Again, from here, sink. So we're just going down the midline of the leg, okay? Again, like I said, we could do lateral or we could do a little bit more medial, but we're just going straight down the center. And for most people, they're still going to feel the release all the way through. You may notice If your hamstrings are really tight, that your quads are starting to get angry with you, right? So sometimes the top of the leg starts to cramp because it's fighting against the ball. If that's the case, just soften the knee. And then from here, push the hips back. This leg over here, again, I usually keep this leg up on this side. You can, particularly if you're back, straighten it out a little bit more. I do find that it's hard on a lot of people to come down on a bent knee like this, so I don't usually recommend it. I usually just keep this one up. Sometimes I bring it a little more forward. Sometimes I bring it a little bit more out to the side. And from here, push the hips back again. If you can lean forward, lean forward. But if you are leaning forward, again, make sure you're keeping the torso long, right? I want you to hinge at the hips, not collapse the chest over the leg. And breathe. So it's very sneaky. You may not notice that your core is doing some work to keep you on the ball at this point. Sometimes people are kind of mysteriously sore the next day and they're not really sure why. Let's push those hips back one more time, right? We're not going to go into the knee joint. All we're going to do is go into about, we're probably about a hand's distance above the knee before we stop. And then from here, we're just going to go back to our starting point, that sits bone, and go ahead and come off the ball. So for some of you, you may be very aware of how your hamstrings normally feel. Go ahead and just lengthen them out in front of you. Give yourself a little stretch. See how that feels. Should have had y'all stand up ahead of time and kind of check how that felt. But again, if you're having tightness in the quads, or you just went through that routine and went, oh my gosh, Amy, that was horrible. Every time you do these routines, they get easier. So the first time it can be a little shocking. Like I said, especially if you just use the silver ball. The gold ball is a little bit kinder, but either one of them can be unpleasant, especially if you're really tight hamstrings. So we're going to do some glute work. We'll go to the glutes because it's really easy to transition from the hamstrings to the glutes, because our starting point is in the exact same spot. So we're going to do two routines. One is just our basic glute routine. Most of the time in body rolling, we don't roll back and forth. This is one of the few routines where we actually do roll back and forth. So we're going to start on the sits bone with the ball. We're going to roll our hips forward. Ball is going to trace right up the glute. Then we're going to shift, and it's going to trace right up the lateral side. Then we're going to shift, and we're going to bring it a little bit more on the medial side. So it's going to go right from the sits bone, kind of more up the path of the sacrum. So the sacrum is this big bony plate right here in the back, okay? So we're going to start, we're going to go middle, we're going to go lateral, and then we're going to go to the sacrum. So we're going to come back onto that right sits bone. I still love it. My doggy came down to see me. We're going to start on that sits bone. We're going to go ahead, since we've already know that we've spent some time there, we're going to go ahead and push the hips back. He just busted through the door again. I'm just going to leave him down here for now. We're going to push the hips back. And then from here, we're going to move our entire body forward. So we're going to plant this heel down. We're going to move the body forward, and we're going to continue then over that sits bone and onto the glute. So you can kind of use this leg to pull you forward. You're going to move forward, move forward, move forward on a straight line, and then push through this heel, come back to where we started. So we're basically going over that ischial tuberosity like it's a speed bump, okay? So we're starting on that hamstring tendon like we did the hamstring routine. We're going to put our heel down into the ground. We're going to, from here, bring ourselves forward, and we're just going straight forward. What you want to imagine is that the ball is just grabbing your booty and lifting it up, okay? So as we roll forward, ball is tracking that glute all the way up. You're just coming straight. So I'm going to show you from the front. We're going to do this one more time. So we're starting at the sits bone. We go bringing the hips back so that the ball drops into the tendon. And then from here, we're going to come forward. Ball goes over the ischial tuberosity and comes all the way up the hip and back down. Now what we're going to do is we're going to shift our hips to the side a little bit so we can do the same routine, but on the lateral aspect. So more on the outer butt cheek than kind of straight up the middle of it. So we're going to shift our hips over to the left. So that's going to put me on a little bit of a diagonal plane. I'm still down here on my sits bone. I'm going to push my hips back. So I'm going below that sits bone, and then I'm going to bend the knee, and we're going to come up, come up, come up, come up, going up the side of the glute, all the way to the top of the pelvis, right? So you can feel where the top of your pelvis is, and as it connects to your low back, we're not rolling onto the low back, we're just going all the way through the glute. And then we're going to push back through the leg and come back to our starting place. I'm going to turn. Dave's here to stay now for this one. I'm going to turn, starting on sits bone, right? Pushing the hips back so that I'm below the sits bone, but I'm on the lateral side, right? So you may want to bring both your hands down on this side. From here, knee bends, heels in the ground. We're going up, 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 up. We're on the glute. We stop before we go into the low back, right? We just go to the crest of the pelvis, push back in, come back down. Most people should be feeling this. You know, I would say between all the sitting that everybody's doing during quarantine times, whether it's homeschooling, I'm sure you can hear my dog. He's over there licking my drink. Or just doing new exercises. Again, hopefully you can feel that this is just intuitive, right? But this is one of the few routines where we do just roll back and forth. So we've got one more path, and that's the more medial side, right? So now we're going to come back to just sitting up on our sits bone. We're going to shift our hips to the right side now. So we're under our right sits bone, but we're shifting our hips to the right. So the ball is going to move more towards midline, right? This is moving more in between the legs. You can even kind of take your glutes and kind of pull them up and move them out of the way. We're going to push the hips back. Ball's going to come into the hamstring and then shift forward. Again, going over the ischial tuberosity, and the ball is moving more up the midline. So up that sacrum, stopping below before we get to the low back. Push back through the heel again. Again, keeping your body weight down into the ball as you shift back and forth. And again, I think most people don't feel as much in this spot. I could be wrong, but I use usually the lateral glute where people feel most things. And here we go, shifting forward again. Good. Before we move to the other glute, we're going to do a little bit more detailed external rotator work. So you can either come off the ball or stay there sitting on the ball. I think the more you sit on the ball, I naturally all day long sit around the house on body rolling balls. So the longer you sit on them, the more comfortable you may get. So you're free to sit on the ball. The external rotators, so they are a small group of muscles. We have 6 of them. And they run for the most part from our sacrum to our femur. So they help rotate, just like they sound. Most of them help rotate the leg externally, right? They do some other jobs as well, but they're major hip stabilizers. They're really deep into this area and can kind of cause a lot of grief. We're going to roll through them briefly today. We're just going to do one routine. The easiest way to think of where you're tracing during this routine is if you were actually wearing panties, like traditional panties, not thongs, but like good old-fashioned underwear, you'd be rolling right along your underwear line. Okay, so we're going to start on that trusty sits bone. We're going to bring our body on a diagonal so that the ball basically traces on a diagonal. Okay, so before we were just going up and down. This time we're going to rotate our body. Ball's going to come around. We're going to end this routine in this indentation here. Okay, so we're not going to be down here on the greater trochanter. So that's his bony part that sticks out. We're not going to be on the hip crest. That's his bony part that's up here at the top. We're going to be in this spot. So if you've heard of something called a hip dip, like I didn't even know that was a thing, but there's something called a hip dip. That's really where we want to be, right? That's in the joint that we want to get in, and that's where those muscles are. So that's what we're going to do next. So we're still on the right side. So we just did the right glute. We're going to go a little bit deeper into that right glute before we switch over to the other side. So we're on our sits bone. From here, and you can keep both legs bent in front of you, we're basically going to just take our hips and kind of shift in the direction of our left side, but on a diagonal, okay? Because what we want to do, if we can imagine, we're tracing a diagonal line from our sits bone pretty much up to our crest or around here. So not only are we shifting to the left, we're rotating just ever so slightly. So when I say rotate, when we're doing body rolling, I always tell people I imagine kind of like being like a pig on a spit or like a rotisserie chicken. Okay, we're really rotating in the same plane, right? So from here, if I'm sits bone, you see I'm rotating and I'm pushing myself to the left, okay? And also slightly down towards my feet so that the ball can come up. From here, I'm gonna let this bottom knee drop open. What does that do? It actually lets those muscles relax so the ball drops deeper into the joint. And then bring the knees back up. Again, we're gonna shift again. Ball's coming through this area. Again, a lot of people are gonna have tension. I know a lot of people are running again. Since gyms are closed and they don't have their normal exercise, I have even, don't tell anyone, I've even jogged a little bit. I'm like a loudly proclaimed anti-cardio girl, right? But I have even run just a little bit. So these external rotators may really be feeling this. And again, we're gonna shift our hips a little bit to the left and rotate a little. Again, remember, ball is coming into this hip dip spot. We're not going onto the trochanter. We're not going to the crest of the pelvis. And from here, you can let this knee open up. If you need to, come on down to your hands, okay? I can see how that's probably starting to create a little bit of tension in the back. Go ahead and come on down and just let your body sink in to the ball. Breathe and sink. And then we're going to shift one more time. So we basically end this routine. The ball should be above that trochanter and just in that joint space. And we're just going to stay here and sink. Again, you can let this knee even open down to the floor if it wants to. And then go ahead and bring it closed. From here, go ahead and come off the ball. I'm going to have you lay down flat just for a moment before we go on to the next side, just to see if you can feel any difference between your right and left side just from doing the glute and the external rotator. For me, I feel that hip sinking down a little bit more into the ground. Leg feels a little bit more free. Often I'll have people get up and walk between routines so you can start to feel the difference. Okay, left side. For some reason, most people's left sides always feel worse than their right. It's a pattern. I feel like I see it's probably like 90-10 of the left side feeling slightly worse. We're going to do glutes first, then external rotator. So remember glute, we're starting at sits bone. We're going to bring our hips back and we're going to do that back and forth motion. Okay, so go ahead on the left side, come on to the left sits bone. Again, gold ball, perfectly fine for this. I'm doing a silver, just what I happen to grab. So either one is perfectly fine. Gold probably a lot more tolerable for beginners right now. Again, with this one, you're going to use this left heel to kind of guide your body back and forth. So we're on the sits bone. We're going to push ourselves back first so that the ball can drop into the tendon, right? Our hamstrings, our glutes attach to the back of our thigh bone, right? So there's a reason why our buns are all kind of sliding down our backside, right? These are huge muscles. They attach down below to your femur, right? So we want to try to lift them back up. We're trying to fight gravity here. So really think about that. As you scoot yourself forward, you want the ball grabbing your gluteal tissue and kind of dragging it up the sacrum. So we're just slowly rolling forward. Again, rare routine where we just roll back and forth, but that's what we're doing. We're just going straight forward, boom, clunk over that ischial tuberosity into the hamstring tendon, and then shifting forward, ball moves up the left glute, stops short before it gets to the low back. We're staying on the pelvis. Again, one more time, pushing back, and then coming forward. And pushing back, coming back to the sits bone. This time we're going to come more out to the lateral side of the glute. So to do that, we're on our left sits bone. We're going to shift our hips to the right. That's going to bring us over to the left lateral side, push yourself back so that we're starting at the top of the thigh, right? We're trying to get below that glute, and then we're gonna roll ourselves forward, going up the lateral side, right? So we have 3 gluteus muscles, right? Glute max is what most people know, right? It's the big one, right? Encompasses the whole area, gives you that big rump. We also have glute medius and glute minimus, and they are out here more on this lateral side. These are very deep stabilizers. They help us with every step we have so we don't fall over. These muscles can get very, very tight and very, very weak. Pretty much every single person that has medial knee pain out there needs to help wake up and strengthen these muscles out here on the side. Great. And then one last path, right? We go up the middle, we go up the lateral side, we're gonna go to the medial side. So to get there, you can see me, balls on the sits bone. I'm gonna just shift a little bit more over to the left before I start, and then I'm gonna push back. And then I'm gonna curl the pelvis under, I'm rolling up the sacrum. When I get to the top of the sacrum, I'm pushing back again. And again. Same thing, staying medial, staying really more where the glute attaches onto the sacrum. Again, for me, I don't have a ton of sensation here. I'm sure some people do and never have. But what I've noticed with body rolling is for everybody. You know, there will be somebody who feels nothing right next to somebody who's feeling a ton. So that's the hard thing doing this alone and doing it online is if you're wondering, is this supposed to feel bad or is this supposed to hurt? The answer is probably yes. And if you're wondering, I don't feel anything, am I doing this right? The answer is still probably yes, right? Because everybody is so very different. So now we're going to do those external rotators. Remember, we're going to go diagonal from the glute. So we're starting down at the sits bone. We're going to turn the body. Ball is going to end in this joint space here. So we're not going to end up here on the hip. We're not going to end up here on the trochanter. We're starting down low. We're rotating the body. Ball is ending up here. Okay? So starting on this left side, Dave's back again. He's found something to chew on. On our left side, knees can either be just hip distance apart or together. I'm going to shift my hips over to the right and rotate slightly, right? And I'm going to start tracing on this diagonal, right? We're following our imaginary panty line, right? I'm sure even if maybe some of us are wearing more granny panties now that we're on lockdown, right? I know my clothing choices and lingerie choices have been a little bit different than normal. So if you are, even if you're wearing granny panties during quarantine, and go ahead and shift again. All right, hip is moving down and we're rotating. You probably don't want to wear them during body rolling. So I think I mentioned this in the intro that being, sometimes people even have a hard time with these glute routines, even when they have a thong, you know, so sometimes just athletic wear or just make sure you've got some really comfy underwear that's going to stay put underneath your pants so that the ball, as we're trying to grab that fascia and grab the muscles and get them to move, that it doesn't pull your underwear as well. So from here, we're going to go ahead and shift again. So once you get to the point, if you're starting to get some tension in your back, go ahead and let yourself come down, right? The ball is landing in this joint. So go ahead and let the knee open, right? The knee should go ahead and open around the ball. When you let the knee go open, it's releasing those external rotators so the ball can sink deeper. And then bring the knees back together. Again, we're going to shift one more time. We're ending on our side. As we're here, just sink. Again, you can let the knee open and bring it back in. But really focus on really getting your weight to sink down into the ball. But yeah, usually when we do this left side external rotator routine, there's a lot of groaning and complaining as we roll through these external rotators. So if this was painful for you, it's not unusual. And then from here, go ahead and shift off the ball. Good. We're going to go ahead and change themes now and move to the upper body. So If you have been using a silver ball, please switch over to a gold. So anytime we're doing chest and shoulder routines, especially when you're beginning, we want to use these softer balls. Okay, so if you have a history of osteopenia or weakened bones or osteoporosis, then definitely always a gold ball. But if that's the case too, please realize you can always take air out of these balls. So whether you have a ball pump that you're using that's your own or the Yamana ball pump, I know I went through this in the video demo, but just simply put the needle in and just let a little extra air out if this is really painful for you. So we're going to do just a real basic chest routine before we move on and close out with our basic back routine. So for a chest routine, we're just going to come forward onto the ball. I'm hoping I can cue you how to do this enough without you having to look up at me. If you're facing straight at your computer or phone screen, you may want to turn to the side just so you can look over at me and not have to pop up and really crank your neck in extension. So we don't want you going through this routine with your neck in extension. So one thing about the sternum and the breastbone, so this is big plate of bone right here, is we don't get a lot of contact in this spot, right? So often this area has not been touched. So it's not unusual for this to be really sore. What we're going to do, you're going to be above breast tissue, below the collarbone. You're just going to let yourself sink onto the ball. Now, for some people, again, this can be really tender, right? We do a ton of forward motion with our pecs all day, right? We're carrying kids, we're carrying groceries, we're carrying all sorts of things. We're reaching forward. These pecs get really tight. And then especially if you're a woman, we can't really get to them, right? You go get a massage. No one's ever working on the front of your chest. They're hard to stretch, as a rule. A lot of pec stretches that we do end up stretching the shoulder joint, not necessarily releasing the pecs. And so it's really, this area can get really, really delicate. Plus it's thin. We have very thin skin and not a lot of fat protecting this area. So this can be really unpleasant. I want you just to stay here with it for a moment and breathe. So I'm going to give a lot more breath cueing for these chest routines. The lower body routines we just did usually kind of wake you up. We're going to kind of try and take your nervous system down a little bit. Really start to focus on the breath. So I think I'm going to face you just so you can see me a little bit better. But again, you may just want to watch me from the side so that you're not really tweaking your neck. If you want to from here, you can just release your chin down on the ball. You don't have to hold it up. What I don't want you to do is looking up and really extending the neck. So again, we're just sinking. And then all we're going to do is we're going to roll. You just stay where you are. And I'm going to we're just going to roll to one side. We're going to roll to the other side. Okay. Really simple and short, so that we make sure we have time to do our back. So from here, we're just sinking into the ball. Again, make sure you're above breast tissue. We're going to go out to the right side first. So from here, all we're going to do is just make this tiny little shift over to the left. So both my hip points are down on the ground, pubic bone's down on the ground. Right arm is reaching out to the side and just rest. I hadn't necessarily mentioned this before. Some of these routines, or whenever you set up for routines, it's always good to have kind of all your balls around. You never know when you want to just rest another body part, especially the head, right? The neck, sometimes we just hold it in an awkward spot for a really long time and don't even notice it. So it's never a bad idea to have another ball around. Just use it. We're really thinking about lengthening out through this right arm the entire time. And again, we're going to shift to the left. So we're just shifting out. We're letting our body just sink down directly, right? So we're not falling off this way. We're not even having to push really hard. We're just letting our weight of our body come down. Now, as you breathe, think about inhaling. The chest expands into the ball. And exhale, let the body sink back into the ball. Again, inhale, rib cage expands out into the ball. Exhale, just let the body sink down into the ball. From here, we're going to shift again. Ball's really coming out onto the front of the shoulder. We're just going to stay here and sink for a moment. Again, make sure that your neck is neutral. It's a great time if you've got another ball to put your head on something. You don't have a ball around, even bringing your head down and resting it on a fist, or if you've got a pillow or a block around or something like that is also great. I'm just going to keep my head neutral here. It's really tempting for me to look up. Even though I can't see you, I still want to look up. Just going to keep that neck long. Now from here, we're going to twist. I do want you to look for a moment, because what I don't want you to do when we twist is I don't want you to let the shoulder come with you and come forward. Okay, this is what our shoulder wants to do all day long. We're not going to let it do that. Okay, what we're going to do is let the ball anchor the shoulder open. We're going to start to, we've got the ball under the right shoulder. We're going to rotate the body to the left. Right, as we rotate, this arm is still reaching long, right? We're keeping the chest nice and open. I also want you to notice keeping length through the back of your neck, keeping length through your torso. So imagine somebody's kind of almost maybe tugging on that ponytail at the top of your head to make your neck long. And breathe here. Again, inhale. Rib cage expands. Oh my goodness, be so grateful that we can breathe right now, right? Breathe, breathe, breathe through the nose, and exhale, sink back into the ball. You can, if you have the mobility, you can even just continue to twist to where I'm completely on my right hip at this point, right? So some people may be able to completely rotate. For some of you right here may feel like a really, really, really strong twist, and that's fine. And then from here, we're going to come right back out. And we're going to shift back to the middle. And then just sit up for a moment before we do the other side. What I want you to feel is the difference between your two shoulders. For me, I can even see here on the computer screen that the shoulder has completely dropped, right? So most of us think of our pecs as kind of just going out this way. Well, another one of our pecs actually comes over and grabs onto the back of our shoulder blade, right? And kind of hikes it up. So anytime we do this chest routine, you're immediately going to get this downward release through the shoulder. So hopefully you have this nice feeling of openness and heaviness. And that routine took like not even 5 minutes, right? So whenever you're feeling this kind of hunched up and kind of compacted after being in front of a computer, 5 minutes, right? 10 minutes tops, going this way and this way. It's just huge how much better you can feel if you've got to sit in front of a computer all day. So on to the next side. So just going to do the exact same thing, right? Balls coming to the sternum, coming to the breastbone. And we're just going to sink here for a moment. Left arm comes on out, and just this little micro shift to the right. Again, keep the head relaxed, right? Don't tense yourself up, right? Let your shoulder blades relax. Notice if your shoulders are starting to creep up around your ears, just let them relax. Even though we're reaching through the side, we're not like muscling it, right? We're really just visualizing length, right? We're imagining the front of our chest opening up. And from here, shift over to the side again, right? We're moving our body to the right so that the ball can come to the left. Again, any time that we're working on the rib cage, it's such a great opportunity to focus on your breath, right? It doesn't have to be a specific type of breath, like you do in yoga class. What I would ask always, though, is that you breathe through your nose. Nasal breathing is so important for our health. Breathe in through the nose. And this is not strenuous, so as long as you're not too congested from allergies, just try to breathe through your nose. And again, shift to the right, balls coming out onto the left shoulder. Just sink forward, let that head release. Right, so the de-stressing benefits of breathing, or deep breathing, it's not necessarily the depth, it's how much you slow the breath down, right? It's having less breaths per minute that provide the stress relieving qualities, if you will, as opposed to the depth. However, it's really easy for people to focus on the depth. Depth will usually naturally lengthen your breath for you. Good. And if you're not here, get the ball underneath the shoulder. We're going to do that rotation. So again, this is fine if you're here. Just make sure that you keep this shoulder down out of this ear and back, right? Don't let it come with you. So if you get to here and then all of a sudden your shoulder wants to come with you, you stop here, okay? If you get to here and you think, oh, I still have room here to move, then continue the twist, right? Really lift through the chest, right? Lift in the direction of the head, right? The spine goes long, right? We don't twist and then collapse still at the same time. We're lifting. And then once you get that lift and that twist, then just really let the shoulder sink back down into the ball, right? So don't push yourself so much that you're off the ball. Come back down onto the ball. Really get the benefits of the ball. I love the golf ball so much. It is like the best thing. It is so therapeutic. It is so expansive. The work that it does in the chest and shoulder area to me is just, it's just priceless. I love it. I don't go anywhere without it. Good. And then from here, go ahead and come on back out and push back. Great. Okay. See how that feels. So I'll usually in the evenings try to do more upper body work because it tends to be more grounding, I think more calming. But I wanted to start with that lower body work just because it was new. So Tasha, I love that you said hi, Dave. I think he's finally settled in for the evening. He usually takes a really nice nap right about now, right before bed. So hopefully he's going down for the night. So we're going to finish with a back routine. I think that we have time to go up both sides of the back. So I feel like that's kind of more thorough. So your choice, again, if this is the first time that you've done body rolling and you really have any issues with your back, or weakness in your core. I know I've got a couple of people who are starting out who are postpartum or really not that far out from surgery, that I really would prefer that you use the gold ball. Okay. If you've been doing this for a while with me and you kind of want a little bit more like just deep tissue work, then you're fine to use the silver ball. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with gold tonight. The back routines can either start from the sits bone or start from the sacrum. Since we're going to go up both sides of the back, let's go ahead and start from the sits bone. So we'll roll through those glutes just one more time, just in case they didn't get enough attention earlier. So one thing I want to point out before you lay down, just so you can watch me, because I hope I can cue you through most of this routine without you having to watch me too much. But what I do want you to watch before we do this is as we get into the mid back, probably right about where we get here, one thing that's tempting for people is for people to lay back over the ball, right? Like you're here and they're like, I'm going to relax. I'm just going to lay here. Okay. Do not extend over the ball like that. The entire time you want to keep some core awareness. And again, the intention, as always, with almost all yamata is space and length, right? So the entire time we're thinking space and length all the way up, but that's going to require that we keep at least some awareness in the front of the abdomen. Now, precautions to keep your core from having to work too much. Again, for those of you that have any type of weakness or any type of issues in the front, then I want you to use your hands to support you here, okay? Either both or one or lots of hands for support, okay? If you don't need it and you want some core strengthening, then yes, you can take your hands off. But even when we're here, right, front of the body is always connected to the back of the body. As we roll down the ball, as we roll down the floor, basically, the ball is going to kind of catch each of those vertebrae and we're creating length and space all along the way. But again, remember when we get up in here, I don't want you to collapse back. Your extended position is here, right? Slightly rounded over the ball, but really strongly connected from the front to the back and strongly creating length, okay? The other thing before we get started is you want to leave a lot of room in front of your feet, right? Because we're going to travel as we do these routines, right? We're going to start all the way at the sits bone. Ball's going to go all the way up the spine. It's going to not go around my armpit. Whoop! Not go around my armpit that way. It's going to come up this way. Okay, so ball's going to be coming all the way up. So we need to have a lot of room to move forward. I'm going to go up the right side, then up the left side. So what does that mean? I'm going to be right here, right next to the spine, but not dead center on it, okay? So for most people, you feel the bones of your spine, and then you kind of feel these two channels that are right next to it. We're going up those channels on both sides, okay? So I'm gonna roll sideways, but I'm gonna start over here, give myself lots of space. I'm gonna start on that right sits bone, so go ahead and come up on the ball. Now, we've already done a lot of stimulation to this ischial tuberosity today, okay? If you were just doing your back routine, I would say stay here and sink for a moment, but we're just gonna roll on, okay? So from here, entire time we're gonna be shifting in the direction of our feet. So we're just gonna take this shift forward. So this is almost gonna feel like the glute routine we did at the beginning when we went right up the middle of the glute. We're just going up the sacrum. Again, thinking about sacrum's moving down on a diagonal, balls pulling tissue and stimulating bone and sending it this way. And again, shifting forward. You can take this opportunity to breathe, right? We've got about 10 minutes together or a little bit more before you kind of hustle off for the rest of your night. So take this time to really go inward and take some nice deep breaths. From here, shifting forward, connect to where the ball is on your body and breathe down to it. So at this point, the ball for me is at the top of the sacrum, right? My sits bones are just barely off the ground. I'm going to go ahead and come on down to the ground and bring my sits bones down. Once your sits bones are on the ground, again, options are arms here for support, arms here for support, no arms for support. Any of these options are valid. The entire time, we're not in an exaggerated C curve, right? So in Pilates, a lot of times we'll go in this really deep C curve. We're not there, okay? We're just trying to keep some tone here. And breathe. Weight back into the ball. On your next exhale, pick the hips up just slightly. Shift forward. Keep your weight in the ball as you shift. Shift forward. Again, hands are here for support or down. For me, I have a really sensitive neck. It's one of my problem areas. So I'm going to go ahead and start to support my neck. I'm going to support it with my left side and let my right side lengthen as I'm working up the right side of the body. Again, pick up the hips. Shift forward. Keep your weight into the ball as you shift, right? Don't pick yourself up and plop yourself back down on it. Keep your weight in the ball. Again, the entire time, this visualization is that you're getting longer, right? Sacrum's grounding. I always like to picture that my hand that's up here that's holding my neck is like stretching me out, right? I want to think about getting taller. Again, supporting yourself as much as you need to if this is overworking your core. If you have any pain in your back, anything that's super sharp, right? It should not be. So if that's the case, then come off the ball. From here, shift forward. Right, balls are out bra height for me at this point. Again, here's where this temptation is sometimes to fall back over the ball. Don't do it. Just breathe. Once the ball starts to get into this mid-thoracic area, it takes some of the tension off the core, right? That really core strengthening portion is when we're down there in the lumbar spine. We're in the thoracic spine now, right? Thoracic spine is most of our vertebrae where we've got a rib cage attached to, right? It's our mid-back. Again, breathe into the ball. When I say that, we all know, of course, we can't breathe into the ball, but picture when you're breathing in, almost like a tube of air coming through and going right to that ball and expanding the rib cage out into the ball. Exhale, sink into the ball. Inhale. Exhale, shift the hips forward. Ball moves up the back, balls to the back of the shoulder. Notice where this right arm is, right? We shouldn't have to hold onto our leg or support ourselves anymore. It can either be behind your head. Notice with my hand behind my head, my chin is slightly tucked. I'm not cramped down. I'm also not extended in the neck. Arm is down. From here, shift forward again. Balls to the top of the shoulder. Now for me, I have a pretty long torso. Anybody with a short torso may already be to the point where their head's supported by the ball. If you're to the point where your head is supported by the ball, when you get there, get it securely supported by the ball. So the ball is going to be back here on your occiput. So this is the back plate of your skull, right? This bony part back here that sticks out. Just let the ball make contact there. Create a little bit of length in the back of the head. Reach this right arm long and drop this shoulder down into the mat, okay? Notice if it started to creep up here. Let it come down and just release. And we're just gonna breathe here for a moment. You can go ahead and let your supporting hand come away from the head and just really start to let the shoulders sink. From here, we're going to take the ball, we're going to slide it back just a little bit, and we're going to hold it supporting the neck. So from here, I've got a nice chin tuck. I'm just lengthening through the back of the head, right? We don't have to jam our head back into it, but we're just letting the ball encourage a nice little chin tuck here. Right shoulders still down, my neck and my head is supported, or the ball is supported with my left hand, just so the ball doesn't go shooting out behind me. Good. And then from here, go ahead and just release the ball. And just stay here for a moment. Take a couple of deep breaths. The hard part about going up one side of the spine and then the other is that you often don't want to get off the ground and go to the other side. But surely, if you're like me, you notice right now you feel a difference from one side of your body to the other, right? There's some different quality for me. My right shoulder feels more open. There's like a lightness in the right side of my body that I don't quite feel on the left. And it's just like the left side's kind of calling to me, which means, yes, we need to get up and do the left side. So as you come out of these back routines, be kind to yourself, right? And just roll off to your side. Press yourself up. We're going to move slowly and finish up on this other side, okay? So we're going to go ahead and come on to that left sits bone. I'm going to turn directions just so you can see me a little bit better. But again, for you, just make sure you have room in front of you to move, okay? So if you're on a mat, back yourself back to the back of the mat again before you start. Starting on the left sits bone. And we're just going to start our journey up the back. So you're going to bring the hips forward. Again, entire time, our body's just going to roll down into the ground. The ball is always lifting, trying to find like a little point to catch on with our fascia and our vertebrae and just create some length and create some space, right? What do we always want? We want space in our back, right? We don't want compression in our spine, right? We don't want to compress our discs. We don't want to compress our nerves. We want length. From here, shift forward again. Ball's just going up that left cheek, up the left glute, up the left sacrum. Just start to ground into that left side. Nice, slow, steady, deep nasal breaths. And again, shift forward. Balls at the top of the sacrum. And then shift forward a little bit more. Just get the sits bones down and even on the floor. Remember, this time we're rolling all the way up the left side. Once your sits bones are down, figure out what you need to do in order to support yourself. Again, options are holding knees, supporting from below, just simply engaging the core to create some length. And breathe. If you can through here, really work on using that diaphragm, right? Bringing the breath all the way down to the belly. As you bring the breath into the belly, rib cage expands 360 degrees, right? Out into that ball. Breathe into your back, right? As the ball is there. And exhale. We're going to roll on the exhale. So inhale. On your exhale, keep your weight into the ball and roll forward. And breathe. Inhale, rib cage expands, breath comes down into the belly. Exhale, sink into the ball. You may be to the point where you feel that you need to support your head. If that's the case, go ahead and do so. Again, please hold on to the knees if this is super taxing for your core. And again, pick up the hips. Shift forward. Balls in the mid-thoracic spine. Again, front of the body is connected to the back of the body sinking down into the ball. Entire body's lengthened. Breathing into the ball, right? Really feel the spot where the ball is making contact with the ribs. Imagine that you could just make the rib cage move out at that spot and then sink back into the ball. And again, shift forward. Inhale. And exhale. Again, completely normal for one side of your body to feel different. My left side is needing this today. Left shoulders relaxed. Pick up the hips, shift forward, balls up between the shoulder blades at this point. If you need to support the head with both hands, feel free to do so. If not, just keep that left arm long and down to your side. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Shift forward. If you're not to the point already where the ball is supporting the occiput or the back of the skull, then bring yourself forward to where the back of the head is supported. Once it's supported, you can let the arms go. Once the arms go, again, be mindful of where your shoulders are. Can you bring your shoulder blades down your back? You don't have to crunch them. Just make sure you're not holding tension and holding them up anymore. Just imagine that your shoulders can just melt back onto the floor. The chin should just have a nice gentle tuck and just breathe. One more time, shift the hips forward. Take this right arm and just keep a hold of the ball so it doesn't fly out from behind you. Keep the left shoulder anchored down. So we're going to take just a little like mini shavasana here at the end. Go ahead and release the ball out from behind the head. And it's up to you. If you feel best with the knees bent, particularly after what we've just done, that's fine. If not, just feel free to extend them along. Just let your arms relax on the ground. I always tell people spin your hands, palms up to the sky. Let the shoulders release onto the floor. Let your breath just go, right? We've been doing kind of having some effort towards our breath. Just let your breath fall back to just to a natural state. Just let it go. And then just slowly start to deepen your breath. Come back into your body if you wandered off somewhere else. Right? If you have felt as much kind of physical stress and tension as I have over the last couple weeks, just kind of take a little mental picture of how relaxed your body can feel and appreciate how quickly, right, we can get to this state. So start to wiggle your fingers and toes. If you have extended your legs, go ahead and bend your knees and just roll off to your side. And then once you're on your side, please use your hands to press yourself up. Don't use your belly or your back. Don't tweak anything after we just kind of let everything go. Be really gentle with yourself and sit back up. And thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And I love that we got that like wonderful little cameo by Dave the Wonder Pug. So I hope you enjoyed. I wish that I could see your faces as well. Please give me feedback. I think that this was really simple, this YouTube link, but please let me know if you feel like you would rather be doing Zoom or some other modality or something like that. So I would love your feedback, and thank you so much for joining me. And I wish I could be like having a cup of tea or a cup of something with all of you right now. But enjoy your evening. And then the next live class is noon on Thursday. And I'm also open to feedback on times for lives. I'm not totally wedded to this, 8 p.m. on Tuesday and noon on Thursday. I'm just kind of throwing things out. So let me know. And then also I've got recorded classes as well if the lives are kind of difficult for you. So anyway, have a good night. Bye, guys.